Below Ishlim, L'chofchei Osios, he did not give Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso, Le'olam 25 letters like he wanted to. Begin the Adlo Itakan Mishkana. And he didn't want to do it until, right, Afisha died B'mei Yaakov, Lo Ya, B'tukana Mishkan, because the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was not yet complete in his time. V'echad has a chaser who, Kolokol Mishkan, of a B'mei Moshe, right? So therefore, since it was lacking in his time, so therefore he left out the extra 25th letter, which is always an illusion. 25 is the number of the Or HaGanuz in potential that we have to bring out and reveal to the world. Right? So once Moshe Rabbeinu built the Mishkan in his time, so that was the completion, right? Mila kadmat v'hava napik menei kadash tulim dibur harishon sheyatzeh ma'mishkan shmishtalim. So the first dibur that came out from the Mishkan once it was complete, right? Lo malil ela b'chofei asvan, lo diber ela b'pasuk sheyesh bo chofei osir. So therefore, it was only said over in a pasuk that had 25 letters. Lachazat dahad ishtalim da kigavna de la'ela. L'ro'os shemalchus nishlama b'chofei b'chinas ke'ein zer'ampin l'mala. This to indicate, to show that the malchus was completed above on the 25 letters, according to, we talked about zer'ampin, the 6 spheres of chesed v'yesod l'mala. And as there was a shlemish, the completion, the building of the Mishkan in the world in which we live, that we merited to pull together all the materials and to bring it together and to put it together in a Mishkan that the Kodesh Baruch Hu could dwell on, right? The end of the Parsha speaks about how the Shechina came down on the Mishkan, the best approbation you can possibly imagine all of history, where God himself sends his divine presence to dwell in the Mishkan, meaning this is complete, folks. You've done good, right? You've done right. You did the right thing over here. There's not a screw missing. There's not a board out of place. Everything is musudar, not just on a microcosmic level, but on a macrocosmic level, on the level of all Ma'aseh Bereshis, all of creation. There's a miniature creation over here that you've done over here, right? So he says, Hareish, the pasuk says, Chofei Osios. This pasuk is 25 letters after the first part of the pasuk itself. V'chein yeshbo vav tevos, and it has 6 words. Keneged vav tevos shel Shema Yisrael, right? Shibzei Ampin. So in other words, the Shema, the six words and the 25 letters of the Shema correspond kabbalistically to what we call Zer Ampin, which is the spheres of the 6 spheres, correspond to 6 words in the 6 millennia of history, right? This in the 6 days of Ma'aseh Bereshis, all the 6s that come after that, before that, right? So the 25 letters of the Shema, the 6 words correspond to the spheres of Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzachot, Yesod. Right, that's the upper world, so to speak, even though they are the basis, the shorish, the cosmic DNA of our 6,000 years of history, but still they represent the Kodesh Baruch Hu, the upper realm, and that's always shalom, it's always complete, right? That corresponds to the Yud K in a sense, right? That it's always going to be complete. The angels see things the way it's supposed to be. The problem is the Malchus, the world below, right? Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam, right? The Malchus has to be shalom, right? So that's our job. That's our work. So when Betzalel, in his time, Al Pi Moshe Rabbeinu, Al Pi Gvura, Al Pi Kodesh Baruch himself, took those instructions and took all the materials and everybody contributed together with the Davos Alev, they brought it together and they actually put together the Mishkan. They were bringing the Shleimus to the Malchus itself. That's what's taking place over here. They actually brought Shleimus of the world, at least in their own Daled Amos over here. Had it stayed, right? Had they been able to maintain that level of godliness and not fall with the Meraglim and the spies, eventually that godliness would have spread to the rest of the world, and it would have brought the Shleimus for all of Ma'aseh Bereshis, all of creation. We would have had Yemos and Mashiach right then and there. It didn't happen that way, but at least temporarily, while the Mishkan was around, that's what it was. The completion of the what Yaakov, what the Zohar calls because Baraza Dichuda, the mystery of the oneness, of the unification of creation itself. So that, in principle, is what the Mishkan represented. The Mishkan represented that complete unification of all of creation, of all of Klal Yisrael, Ke'ishacha b'lev echad, the nun shari, but it's all piled together in this one particular idea. And this, of course, is exactly the opposite of what took place in Shechem. Shechem is a makom muchem lepriyonot. It's a place that's set aside for punishment, which means division, which means a lack of achdus, which of course is where things went wrong with Yosef and the brothers, right? So Shechem, which we've spoken about before, and this is the whole Hanukkah story, basically, that the word Shechem itself is Shin Chof Mem. Chof always represents a certain spiritual blindness, meaning that a person is not real with a Shkacha Pratis, divine providence, and as a result of that, they don't appreciate what Hashem is doing for the good of creation and mankind. They complain, they kvesh, they lack of bitachon, and the Chof, breaks up the Shin and the Mem. The Shin and the Mem stands for Kodesh Baruch Hu's name, Hashem, right? The name itself. So there's a division. That's Amalek, right? Makim Muchan Lepriyonot, just like Haman was Muchan. What was his name? Muchan, says the Gemara, because it was Muchan Lepriyonot, because Haman is a descendant of Amalek who comes to divide the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Mishkan came to complete this. So right in the word Mishkan itself, you have the word Shechem, with one major difference. The Shin and the Mem are together, right? Mem Shin Chof Nun, right? With the addition of the Nun, Shechem is transformed, where you now have the Chof outside of the Mem and the Shin, so now they can be together, and the signifying the name is now being unified, right? And what did that? The Nun. And the Nun is always a representation of the Nun Shari Bina, the 50 gates of understanding, of wisdom, that are in the Torah itself, that we're supposed to pursue by entering Pardes. In other words, the unity that the world lacks, that the world lives for, right? All that's going wrong in history, all that's gone wrong in the Jewish people, all the anti-Semitism, all the lack of achdus down here is really just a measurement of the lack of achdus between man and God. And the Jewish people are here to be an or lagoyim. Our job is to unify mankind with God, which is tantamount to destroying Amalek, because we unify Yud-K and Vav-K. And when we do that, we create a Mishkan, and as the Torah itself says, we become the Mishkan. The Shechina can now be sharit within us, dwells within us. And how do we do that? We do that by having bitachon and emunah, trust and faith in God, but real trust and faith in God, not simply lip service, not simply learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, but when it comes to the crunch and having to make a decision that puts things that are comfort at risk, but for the sake of a mitzvah, right? And we back down, and we find all kinds of practical reasons why we shouldn't do it. So that's not being a mishkan. That's not unifying Hashem and mankind. And that results in just the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish, because by trying to protect ourselves in terms of materialism, ends up that the world takes it all away from us in the end. And we've always lost that. Whatever we gained amongst the nations of the world, above and beyond what was necessary for the sake of our responsibility as an Or Lagoyim, we always lost in the end. And we see the world right now going down a dark path. We are now walking towards a time in history that's not so pleasant for the Jewish people. No matter how much we do good, no matter is on our side, the world's not into logic at this point in time. The world's into whatever works for them, whatever makes them think temporarily they're solving the problems of history, and in fact, just the opposite. As we've seen history historically over and over again, they make the mistake, and the result is going to be, unfortunately, even worse situations than we have right now. God forbid. How do we rectify that? We have to build a Mishkan. That's what the Mishkan was. The Mishkan was the ultimate unification of mankind with the Jewish people. There they built the Mishkan physically. Today, we don't have the Mishkan within our hands. We can't go into it like they used to be able to do. We can't even see it as they once saw it. Instead, we have to build the Mishkan within ourselves. And we do that by trusting in Kodesh Baruch Hu, by trusting in God, by having emunah, by doing all that, which makes people stand back and say, why would a person do a thing like that? Why would a Jew do that? It must be that he believes in God. It must be he trusts in God. Wow, that's an amazing thing.